accept people's calling for war. I mean, I don't accept what the PAC is saying about a year of great storms. Because I feel that we have achieved something in this country where those who have oppressed us in the past are actually talking to us and are showing readiness to negotiate for democratic elections.
Chris Hani was one of South Africa's most popular political leaders during the 1980s and early 1990s. When he returned to South Africa in 1990, after many years in exile, he held senior leadership positions in Umkhonto we Sizwe, the ANC and the South African Communist Party. As a communist and a guerrilla leader, Hani was feared and hated by most white South Africans. But despite his militant image, Hani became a man of peace after the negotiations between the government and the ANC started in 1990, and he actively promoted reconciliation. Hani knew that his life was in danger.
The majority of whites in this country, including the lunatic fringe on the right wing, is being incited against our party. And because of the deeply ingrained anti-communism in this country, one is not surprised that a number of our activists at a branch and regional level either have been killed or attempts have been made to kill them. And I think it's going to continue, and we must expect that attempts will be made to eliminate us or even to kill leaders of the Communist Party.
On the morning of Saturday, the 10th of April 1993, Chris Hani was shot and killed by a white man in the driveway of his home in Dawn Park, Boksburg. It sent shockwaves through the ANC and the whole of the country, and within minutes friends, colleagues and supporters arrived on the scene. The immediate fear was that the assassination could trigger large-scale violence and retribution, and that the negotiations for a new constitution between the government and the ANC would be stopped. State President F.W. de Klerk agreed that Nelson Mandela should address the nation on television.
We are a nation in mourning. Our pain and anger is real. Yet we must not permit ourselves to be provoked by those who seek to deny us the very freedom Chris Hani gave his life for. Let us respond with dignity in a disciplined fashion.
Chris Hani was buried 9 days after his assassination. A senior member of the right-wing Conservative Party, Clive Derby-Lewis, and a Polish immigrant, Janusz Walusz, were arrested and charged with Hani's murder.
Janusz Walusz and CP member Clive Derby-Lewis have been found guilty of murdering SACP chief Chris Hani in April. Co-accused, Mrs. Gay Derby-Lewis, was acquitted on all charges.
The Rand Supreme Court found that the case against assassin Walusz was overwhelming and that evidence clearly showed direct intent.
The right-wing and the pro-apartheid forces did not succeed, and South Africa became a proper, non-racial democracy on 27 April 1994. Just over 4 years after Chris Hani's death, his murderers applied for amnesty from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Present at the hearings were Dimpo Hani, Chris Hani's widow, and Derby-Lewis's wife, Gay. The members of the Amnesty Committee had to determine whether the two men had a political motive to kill Chris Hani, whether they did this as members of a political movement or party, and whether they had made a full disclosure of all the relevant facts. Walusz, the man who fired the gun that killed Hani, said he left Poland in 1983 because of his hatred of communism. After 1990, he felt the National Party government was again moving too far to the left, and he wanted to emigrate again. He and Derby-Lewis agreed that Hani should be assassinated because he was a Communist Party leader. On that Easter Saturday morning in 1993, he sat outside Hani's Boksburg home. Hani came out and drove off in his car with no bodyguard in sight. Walusz followed him to Dawn Park shopping center, where Hani got the newspapers. But there were too many people at the shopping center, so Walusz followed him back to the house.
Nie chciałem strzelać w plecy.
I didn't want to shoot him at the back, at his back.
Zawołałem.
I call
pan Hani.
Panie Hani, Mr. Hani.
Kiedy pan Hani
When
odwrócił się,
Mr. Hani turned,
wyjąłem pistolet
I took out the
z
pistol
zapaska spodni.
from the belt, from
Oddałem
behind the belt,
pierwszy strzał
and I shot first time in the body of Mr. Hani.
po którym
After that,
pan Hani obrócił się
Mr. Hani turned
na miejscu.
while he was standing. When he fell
Podczas
down
tego obrotu
during this turn,
oddałem drugi
I shot
strzał w
a
głowę.
second shot in his head.
Kiedy padł na ziemię,
When he fell on the ground,
oddałem
I
dwa strzały.
shot 2 times
Kiedy padł na
behind his ears.
Darby Lewis made it clear that he was the leader of the assassination plot. He admitted that he gave Walush the gun with which Hani was shot and that he had supplied him with Hani's home address. He tried to persuade the Amnesty Committee that he had a political motive and that he acted inside the policies of the Conservative Party.
With his speech on the 2nd of February 1990, when he announced the unbanning of not only the ANC, but also the SA Communist Party, it became obvious to many people, myself included, that Mr. F.W. de Klerk and his colleagues were preparing to betray us all. On the 26th of May 1990, the late Dr. André Streurnicht had made his and the CP's feelings and intentions clear when he, addressing the largest political rally ever held at the Voortrekker Monument, I believe that in the region of 150,000 people were there, Mr. Chairman, and it was really a large rally. I was there myself. Called the people up to the third freedom struggle. As the two previous freedom struggles were wars, this was clearly a call to arms for Afrikaners.
Ek sê daardie magte, daardie persone, daardie organisasies help die tyd ryp maak wanneer nie net die Afrikaner volk nie, maar ook ander volke die banier vir die Christelike volksvryheid sal vasgryp en sal uitroep: hier staan ons, God help ons, ons kan nie anders nie.
As the de Klerk treachery became more and more obvious, or should I maybe say the de Klerk regime, the National Party regime treachery became more and more obvious, and as it was just as obvious to us that the armed struggle was the only option now open to us, we discussed how best we could strike a crippling blow against the communist leadership as the real enemy. It was obvious to us that the late Chris Hani, as the leader of the Communist Party, was the real threat to our future and that of the Republic of South Africa. The whole objective was to plunge the country into a situation where, as a result of the chaos which we anticipated would occur as a result of the assassination, that people on the right would be inspired to mobilize and use this vacuum caused by the chaos to effect a counter-revolution and to take over power of the country. That was the whole object, and I mean, that's why a man like the late Chris Hani had to be the target. Because, I mean, imagine if we targeted anyone else, there was no one that had the sort of following that the late Chris Hani had. And as I said earlier, I said, perhaps it was even a tribute to the status of Chris Hani that he was selected as a target.
Before you decided to make yourself guilty of murder, did you go to your leader and ask specifically, leader, what is our party's policy in relation to killing people or doing damage to property or using violence?
Mr. Chairman, I testified the moral basis of killing in the ongoing struggle against the Antichrist, and I have testified as to what my leader said.
Did Dr. Truenig tell you personally that there was a change of CP policy from non-violence to violence, yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, I'm unable to answer all of these ridiculous questions in a straight yes or no context, because yes or no is not a satisfactory way of answering.
No, it may be possible to say Dr. Truenig never told me or he told me.
Mr. Chairman, he is saying, did Dr. Truenig tell me personally? There is a war.
Did Dr. Herzenberg ever tell you personally that the CP policy had changed from non-violence to violence, yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Hartzenberg's statements are on the record of this court, of this committee.
Please answer my question.
He did not tell me personally, once again.
Thank you. Did any other leader of the Conservative Party tell you personally that there was a change of policy by the CP from non-violence to violence?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
The Conservative Party has never, since its inception, planned acts of violence. Actually, the planning of the Conservative Party has as its aim to prevent violence in the country by offering a political solution that will create peace and stability and prosperity in South Africa.
Are you saying that at that time there was an official Conservative Party policy in relation to violence and an unofficial policy of the Conservative Party in relation to violence?
What I'm saying, or trying to say, Mr. Chairman, is that while the official policy of the Conservative Party was against violence, and I also qualified it earlier by saying that no political leader would put anything like that on paper, I'm also saying that the interpretation, the perception was that this Conservative Party was already involved in violence with the mobilization plans and the statements by Dr. Truenig.
But Dr. Herzenberg says precisely the opposite, that violence is outside the Conservative Party. Was he telling the truth or not?
He was telling the truth as confirmed by Dr. Truenig when Dr. Truenig was
Confine yourself to the statements of Dr. Hartzenberg. When he said that violence was outside the Conservative Party, was he telling the truth or not?
He was telling the truth, yes, Mr. Chairman. I've already said that.
Yes. Now you say that there was an unofficial policy of the Conservative Party. What was the unofficial policy of the Conservative Party in relation to violence? It must be violence.
Mr. Chairman, I did not say there was an unofficial policy within the Conservative Party. I said it was outside, it was bigger than the Conservative Party.
This church that you belong to, did you go to it the day after the murder?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have to go to church to practice my religion. I practice my religion every minute of the day.
Including when you conspired to kill Mr. Hani?
Correct, Mr. Chairman.
So that can we then say that the first reason that you give why Mr. Hani was killed by you was because you wanted to kill the Antichrist and save South Africa?
The first paragraph reads as follows, Mr. Chairman: to strike a blow for Almighty God and Christianity against the Antichrist communism in the form of the leader of the SA Communist Party. Nothing about South Africa. Mr. Chairman, with respect, I think I've answered that trend of question
Darby Lewis denied that he was simply a racist.
I am not a racist. I do not hate black people. I don't hate yellow people. I don't hate Greeks. I don't hate anybody. But I'm very proud of the fact, Mr. Chairman, that I'm an Afrikaner and I love my people.
You saw, did you, Mr. Darby Lewis, the late Mr. Hani calling for peace? That is the man that you killed, Mr. Darby Lewis.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Darby Lewis, you made an attempt to apologize.
May I ask, is this a condition, and is this something over which the committee should then be subjected to evidence? My impression was that an apology was not necessary and not part of the whole function of this committee.
An applicant, to apologize for what he did, is required to make a full disclosure of what he did.
I'm not asking as a question of law. I am asking as to whether this person that is before you has ever expressed regret for killing a person who could have made a valuable contribution to the political life of this country or not?
Mr. Chairman, no. How can I ever apologize for an act of war? War is war.
The Amnesty Committee found that Darby Lewis and Wallis did not fulfill the preconditions of a political motive, and that their actions were not sanctioned by the political grouping they belonged to. Their application for amnesty was denied, and they were sent back to jail.